Fear. Violence. Death. Horror. Back in 2008, Dead Space shocked the gaming world with its undying commitment to pushing the envelope on these concepts. It is now 2023. 15 years later. God, I'm old. Bitch! I'll admit, when I heard they were remaking this game, I was wondering, why? EA already killed the franchise by forcing Visceral Games to make Dead Space 3, a complete disaster by the way, the way that they forced them to make it, and as quickly as they forced them to make it, and then EA shut down the studio when people did not like the finished product.
What?
No, alright. I know that sounds bad.
EA will always be the villain in my eyes for what they did to Visceral. It is absolutely irredeemable. So naturally, when EA announced they were reviving the franchise, which is corporate talk for squeezing as much money out of the franchise as they possibly can as a final pump and dump, I had mixed feelings. I decided to wait to play it until a bunch of reviews came out. If you've read the title, then you understand that my summation is that this is a fantastic remake that is worth playing even if you have played the original. This isn't what is in question in this video. There are things I think the original did better, and there are things I think the remake did better. Let's talk about it. Starting with the main beats of the story are all the same. You have a crew of a small ship called the Kellion. The crew consists of Isaac Clarke, the engineer, your player character, Kendra Daniels, a tech expert, Zach Hammond, the security chief, Johnson, another security officer, and named Haley Johnson in the remake, and
Aiden Chen, the pilot.
The crew flies in for a routine mission to inspect the USG Ishimura, a mining vessel. Nobody answers the phone when the ship is hailed.
Come on. Someone pick up the damn phone.
The crew goes to inspect the ship and crashes. Isaac is here to fix the ship, but he is also here to find his wife, Nicole. More on that later. The crew is ambushed by monsters after finding the ship completely empty of life. Isaac and the team work together to fix the ship, to attempt to give them more time to figure out a way to escape the ship. While fixing the ship, the crew learns about an artifact called the Marker that appears to have driven the crew mad, as well as aided whatever infestation has taken over the ship. Through your exploration of the ship, you find out what happened to all the high-ranking crew members of the Ishimura. They're all basically dead or mutated into monsters. The crew also encounters a religious zealot who worships the Marker called Dr. Chalice Mercer. Mercer tries to sell Isaac on his religion. Your crewmates die along the way, with Chen and Johnson going first and then Hammond next, leaving you and Daniels left to escape. After a way out is found thanks to one Dr. Kine, a man you learn about throughout the game, Daniels betrays Isaac, kills Dr. Kine, and leaves to deal with the Marker. But Isaac gets controlled by the Marker and is made to return to the planet where it has been cultivating the growth of a giant flesh monster called the Hive-Mind. Dr. Mercer dies after trying to mess with Isaac's plans. Daniels is revealed to work for EarthGov, essentially corrupt government officials on Earth who have big ties to corporations who wanted to erase what happened to the Ishimura to save their public image. Isaac pursues her with aid of his wife, Nicole, who he has been searching for the whole game and has recently found close to the end. After Isaac catches up to Daniels and returns the Marker to its home pedestal because it made him, Daniels reveals that Nicole died a long time ago, and that Isaac has been under control by the Marker for a long time. The Hive-Mind appears, kills Daniels by turning her into a floor pizza. Isaac destroys the Hive-Mind and flees, only to be assailed by Nicole, who has been very clearly dead for a long time, implying that the Marker still has a hold over Isaac's mental state. That is the Cliff Notes version summary of the main plot, without the audio and video log stories used to enhance it. Let's dive in. The main plot beats are exactly the same, but they happen differently. The original and remake both did certain things better. Let's go over them. Number 1. The opening goes to the remake in terms of setting up the main characters and giving them good chats and ways to establish who they are. Isaac has a voice in the remake, which he did not in the original, and it shines in the opening. However, the original's opening is very iconic. Point to the remake. Chen dying. The remake gave his death more weight as he had more screen time. Johnson dying also goes to the remake because for the same reason as Chen. Fixing the ship. Isaac is the one coming up with the ideas of how to fix the ship because he is a damn good engineer, and he can speak now. That makes more sense than the original where the other people come up with the ideas. Point to the remake. Dr. Mercer's introduction. The remake gave him a lot of time to chew the scenery, which the actor absolutely does. At times, a little too much, with a lot of unneeded dramatic pauses which feel unearned. To be fair, so did the original. But otherwise, he was great. Mercer gets up close and personal in the remake, which I like a lot. Also, his stasis gun is so deliciously evil, and it also makes a lot of sense that a doctor would have a stasis gun. I am a big fan. Remake Mercer gets the W on his introduction scene. Leviathan fight and arc. So, Elizabeth Cross was a character that you actually meet in this game, which was neat. The original, that was not the case. The Leviathan was much more of a presence in the remake, and the fights were so much better in the remake. So, point to the remake. Hammond's death. This is a tough one. In both versions, he dies fighting like the badass he is. The spirit is the same. In the original, it was to a brute, and in the remake, it was to a mutated Chen, who the marker made Hammond see as his normal self. I have to give it to the remake on this one. But if I could get a remaster of Hammond 1v1ing the brute, I would be very fucking down. Dr. Mercer's death. The original gave him a brutal death that scared the crap out of me, and was very in line with his character goals. Also, a bad guy that gets what they want is a capable bad guy. The remake gave him a lol get pranked death, which made me chuckle, but it wasn't nearly as effective as the original in the horror aspect of things. But it is always fun to see a villain get denied. But I would also argue that seeing a villain get what they want can be remarkably effective. Just ask this guy. Point to the original. The deaths of the Ishimura officers. I have to give it to the remake. The captain's death especially. In the remake, it actually looks like an accident. In the original, it looks purposeful. Because the death was meant to be an accident, because the blocking was just better, I have to give it to the remake. Also, the power of the marker was much more subtle in the remake, and we like that. Also, being able to find the officers' rigs and use them to give you security clearance, what a genius mechanic. Point to the remake, no question. Nicole's entire plot line. I unfortunately have to give it to the original by a long shot here. It's unfortunate because there's actually a full quest line in the remake for her, where there's not in the original. I feel like keeping her hidden until the end was more effective, and hid her death more effectively than her quest line did. Also, I feel like the voice actor back in 08 was a better choice, but that's just a me issue. Something also worth noting is that they brought a big twist from Dead Space 2 into this remake, being that Isaac was the reason Nicole was on board the Ishimura in the first place, being that he pushed her to go onto the ship. So I'm not too sure how I feel about that. Finally, it feels like her death being realized in the investigation quest line kinda came out of nowhere, where just a bunch of screens light up for some reason and Isaac has a memory. Whereas in the original, Daniels is the one to bring Isaac to his senses and make him realize what's happening.
To further expand on this, because I forgot to do it in my original draft. Classic me. The twist with Isaac being the reason Nicole was on the Ishimura in the first place was actually the opening cutscene of Dead Space 2. I remember playing Dead Space 2 for the first time back then, and that twist hitting me very hard. Not only was this the first time we got to hear Isaac speak, but it revealed such a horrific thing about Isaac's character. And on top of that, it would also foreshadow every single decision that Isaac would make throughout the entirety of Dead Space 2. The whole game is centered around Isaac's guilt. Everything plays into it. The marker is prodding Isaac. There are NPCs in Dead Space 2 that Isaac interacts with because of his guilt around Nicole. Everything is about guilt. And having the opening cutscene be a massive gut punch to not only the character, but you, the player, is just genius. But instead, now that opening cutscene's gone, and now we're just in the game. We no longer have that gut punch. We no longer have this is the frame of our entire story. Another thing worth noting is that Dead Space 1's story has almost nothing to do with guilt, and almost everything to do with just surviving. The only character I can think of off the top of my head that really feels any guilt during the story and actively makes decisions based on the fact that they feel guilty is Hammond, who constantly feels guilt for being unable to save his squad. Shoving Isaac's guilt plotline, which is a very long plotline by the way, into Dead Space 1, a game that is already jam-packed full of lots of other plot lines, is not so good because we don't get to explore it. This is a phenomenal twist. This is a great moment to have with Isaac. It needs to be in the story. But having it be sudden and out of the blue, and in the story where it's not explored at all, and having it be a side quest, hello? That feels bad. At least it does to me. I don't know about you, but that feels bad to me. Anyways, back to the video.
The original wins so hard on this that it gets 2 points, because this story is extremely important. Sometimes less is more. Daniel's revealing Nicole's fate. The remake both beats the original and then shoots itself in the foot. By having Nicole's investigation plotline, they weakened the reveal because Nicole's death was spoiled then. But then, by having Dr. Elizabeth Cross be the person who Isaac was seeing as Nicole this whole time is a genius way to fix the enormous plot hole from the original game, where there was absolutely no way for Isaac to be in 2 places at once. More on this plot hole later. Daniel's revealing Nicole's fate is also the firing of the Chekhov's gun of her being suspicious of Isaac every time he brings up Nicole in the game.
Nicole helped me out.
Nicole's there.
We got separated. She'll find her way back.
She's a trooper, huh?
I'm heading back to the mining control room. I'll launch the beacon. You watch out for Nicole.
Assuming the system doesn't fizzle out again. Stay sharp.
The original didn't have this Chekhov's gun because Isaac was a quiet boy. He didn't say shit. But they so wonderfully set this up to be a point to be cashed in on, only to prematurely blow their narrative load with the side quest. Daniel's dying was the exact same in the remake. It was great. I'm not giving a point anywhere. The hive mind fight was pretty much identical. Still fun in both. I enjoyed it. The iconic Nicole jump scare at the end. I think the original did the animation and sound better because it was just so unbelievably scuffed. It was so just weird. It just did not feel right in any way. The sound felt delayed. Nicole's movement was so it was just a big ew. I don't like it. But that's the point. That's how it should be. The remake makes it look too polished. Like, it feels weird in a bad way. It looks like she's like casually stabbing you. Point to the original. Okay, seeing our point total here, the remake is a sizable improvement. Just because the original did some things better doesn't mean the remake did it poorly, and vice versa. I can make an argument for every point for both sides except for Nicole. The remake really fumbled the ball on that one. I assume they're going to come up with another twist to put in the Dead Space 2 remake, if that's ever a thing. All of the NPCs are improved in the remake, and the new NPCs are also all improvements. I'm glad they're here. Isaac being so capable at his job and having a voice this time around is also a nice touch. Isaac having a voice was welcome in Dead Space 2. It's welcome here. Because Isaac has a voice and is a specialist in his field, the NPCs get to be specialized in their fields as well. Everyone in the Kellyan crew feels like they have a place. They have strengths, flaws, and more character-driven reasons for their actions. Giving Isaac a voice is also a welcome change. It was welcome in Dead Space 2, and that still holds true here. The NPCs you meet on the Ishimura, being Cross, Kyne, and Mercer, all have functions in the story, and for the most part, are all improvements. Except for Mercer's death. There's not much else to say. The characters are written well, and their dialogue with Isaac is great. Isaac's descent into madness is also illustrated well in the remake through the dialogue. Dr. Cross is a nice addition to the cast. The Cult of Unitology has a much bigger presence in the remake, as Hammond follows them, Mercer leads them, and Isaac talks about his family being involved with them. The unseen atrocities of the Unitologists are brought more into focus this time, which enhances the story and the atmosphere. Hell yeah, I love an evil cult doing shit behind the scenes. Also getting to hear how the cult affected Isaac's family, driving his mother to kill his father and then herself. You gotta think that she's also donated so much money to the church, right? And then considering that Isaac blamed Nicole for their deaths because Nicole did a psych evaluation on his mother and cleared her to go back home just before she killed Isaac's father. Then on top of that, the Unitologists caused this whole outbreak, which took Nicole from Isaac as well. It's just so tragic and dark. This cult has taken everything from this man. It's horrible and dark, and I love it. As stated earlier, I do think the timing of the reveal of Nicole's fate was off because that scene spoiled that for Daniels. But from a world-building point of view, the tragedy of Isaac with the evil of the Church of Unitology was just brilliant. Such a fantastic addition to the game's world building, but unfortunately, it cost the game one of its best reveals a lot of weight. The delivery of Isaac's dialogue changing depending on environmental factors, fatigue, and how much damage you've taken is one of the most genius things I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what else to say about it. There was a whole ass video on how this system works, and it is insane how in-depth it is. Give it a watch after this one if interested. There's a link in the description. The enemies in Dead Space are all wonderfully designed, each offering a new and interesting challenge for your weapon sandbox. The only thing I think the remake gets wrong is that the normal necromorph forms don't rush at you anymore, flailing their arms like murderous Beyblades. Instead, they employ a lot of squad tactics and stealth, which I also like. It definitely makes me think that they are controlled by a hive mind. But on their own, I would love to see the return of this iconic rushdown that made me fear them so much in the past. It really felt like the bodies of the crew were thrown around like disposable tools, which added to the cosmic horror aspect for me. Other than that gripe, all the other enemies fill their roles wonderfully. The biggest improvement being the Brute, who no longer accepts their fate mid-battle and curls up into a ball, which I love. Brute fights were very much so improved in the remake. Oh boy, here we are again. I'm not gonna pretend like I didn't just make a Darkwood video where I spent a good chunk of it crapping all over the concept of jump scares in games and films. I get it. In that video, I made a point to say that scaring me with a horn section is a dick move instead of scaring me with the monster or a thing. That still holds true, and both versions of Dead Space are very guilty of this. There are a lot of cheap scares in Dead Space, but there's also a lot of earned jump scares because the atmosphere in this game is so rich and anxiety-inducing. The mysterious horn section is ever present, but sometimes the music comes after the monster roars at you. That's perfect. I'm not saying you shouldn't have music during a scare. You absolutely should, but it should follow the scare, not be the scare. God, I should just make a video on this shit. Holy fuck. Anyways, the remake absolutely captures the spirit of the original with the horror, in this case, for better and for worse. They fixed the upgrade system. Holy shit. You no longer waste power nodes on empty spaces because every space matters, and you can upgrade more than one gun through your whole playthrough. They also encourage you to explore in the remake by leaving weapon schematics lying around, some of which are in areas only accessible with higher levels of security clearance, which, oh my god, what an amazing mechanic that was to not only get you more invested into the story, but to get you some really spicy loot. Hell yeah. All the guns are great. Plasma cutter still slaps. The pulse rifle, instead of having a very questionable ability in the original, which if thought about practically would be the cause of incalculable friendly fire, now has a noob tube, which is a great improvement. The line gun, force gun, ripper, flamethrower, and contact beam are also all great. Every gun having an alternate fire makes the weapon selection feel like a perfect size. There are not that many weapons in this game, but the alternate fires make it feel like there's a lot. Also, just in terms of flavor, every weapon other than the standard issue pulse rifle being a tool that was modified to be a weapon is mwah. God, this game rocks. Huge improvement all around with this. The weapons being tools thing was the same in the original. It's just amazing world building. It's just something I wanted to point out that I love so much about this. Okay, I'll stop. The remake runs so unbelievably smoothly compared to the original. Isaac's melee attack is now a more useful tool this time around and isn't a crazy haymaker. Although, the old animation does highlight that Isaac is out of his element, which I kind of like, but the new punch is more usable, which I also like. Because original Dead Space 1 melee was just unbelievably useless. All of the movement is less clunky, and 0G, those sections are now incredible in the remake, especially the Leviathan fights. And oh my god, they actually mapped out the entire ship, which you can take a tram between at any time you want. The USG Ishimura is yours to explore. It is beyond incredible to see iconic sections of the original perfectly remade here. But the new areas are great, and the fact that you can just go between them without a hard cut to a loading screen blows my mind. The copious amount of loading screens in the original had definitely pulled you out of the setting and immersion of the game, but that is not the case in the remake. The original Dead Space had a massive plot hole. I have mixed feelings on this plot hole, because I believe it is a weirdly effective writing choice, but I also understand that, objectively speaking, a plot hole is a plot hole, and plot holes are bad. So what is this plot hole? In the original Dead Space, in the final act, when shit is hitting the fan and you are reunited with Nicole, there are sections where she completes tasks while you fend off the necromorphs. Same with the remake. At the end, however, it is revealed that Nicole had died, just like the remake, but in the original, there was no Elizabeth Cross to serve as her body double in those sections. So how the hell did Isaac complete those tasks? I am personally of the belief that the plot hole existing was not a conscious choice in the original game, but personally, I find it fascinating and effective. Dead Space is cosmic horror, and having something completely unexplainable is sort of the whole point of the genre. This plot hole being present offers the opportunity for speculation. If this plot hole was addressed properly in the sequels, It could have been an effective choice for the story. It just wasn't addressed in Dead Space 2 or 3, just completely left. But having Isaac wondering how the hell he got off the Ishimura with the knowledge that Nicole is gone and the final acceptance of her passing, which is an enormous part of Dead Space 2's story, that leaves Isaac with more questions. Yes, Nicole's dead, but I made it off the ship with her help. How is that possible? Did I make it off the ship? Am I dreaming? Is this some sort of marker-induced purgatory or hell? Am I dead? Isaac could overcome his greatest mental trial up until that point, only to be thrust directly into a far more terrifying mental situation. Doesn't that sound cool? I don't know. I think that sounds cool. Let me know what you think. Jumping back into the remake, fixing the plot hole. It is a very effective twist and is definitely a great reveal that also showcases just how powerful the marker can be. It is a truly effective change for the story, but I just wonder what could have come from keeping the plot hole in. It's clear the writing staff on this game is amazing. Like, a lot of the additions to this game have been incredible. I would love to have seen what they would have done with the original plot hole. Having the marker help Isaac off of the ship so he could build more markers in Dead Space 2's story is a weird and terrifying thought. On top of this, with them taking the twist from Dead Space 2 with Isaac pushing Nicole to go on board the Ishimura and Isaac's guilt being a massive part of Dead Space 2's story, I just think a great next step to Isaac's madness after finally overcoming his guilt of Nicole's death and finally overcoming his delusions of her survival caused by the marker could be complete uncertainty of everything. Nicole being alive was a comfort zone for him. Nicole being dead but being unable to overcome his guilt was not a comfort zone, but it served as some kind of a structure for Isaac, helping him justify the unexplainable with hallucinations. Accepting that not only is Nicole gone, but she has been gone for a long time could open up such tragic and terrifying avenues of horror and narrative unreliability. The possibilities are endless.
Hello! I absolutely had a blast playing through the remake. What are your thoughts on the remake? What are your thoughts on the original? How much do you hate EA for destroying Visceral and the Dead Space brand? And lastly, how did you enjoy the video? Did it make you thinky thonk at all? I hope so. If you made it this far, I just want to say a big genuine thank you for sticking around this long. It means the most. Truly it does. I'm happy that somebody's down to listen to my thoughts about this kind of stuff at all. If you'd like to see more content from yours truly, be sure to form that secret handshake with that subscribe button, and I will know when you've done it. I know I take a while to make videos because my brain machine doesn't work on schedule sometimes, so to know for sure when a new video drops, subscription will help you out right there. Now with all that said and done, thank you all again so much for sticking around. I can't convey how much it means. Once more, I've been Fiend, you've been fantastic, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.